My name is Randy Howell, and you're listening to the Faith and Fishing Podcast.
Welcome to the Faith and Fishing Podcast. I'm Cam.
And I'm Robert. In every episode, we're bringing you faith stories and fishing memories from some amazing members of the fishing community.
So join us as we shed a positive light on all things faith and fishing. Hey y'all, welcome back to the Faith and Fishing Podcast. I'm Cam.
Hey, and I'm Robert.
And we've got a pretty cool episode this week. But yeah, we finally got a new intro. In the first week that we played it, Robert wasn't there to see it.
Yeah, appreciate it. It's been a busy couple of weeks. I started a different job, and then the kids had all kinds of sports stuff going on, and it's just cram packed full the last couple of weeks. So glad to get back in here tonight. And the intro looks good. So yeah, it's a good deal.
Yeah, for sure. Wanted to say we've been shouting out the Jackson Oars catch tournament that starts this weekend. So by the time you're listening to this, it will have already taken place. Hopefully you got to sign up. I did sign up, but I am not going to be able to fish it. I won't be able to fish until Monday, but I will be fishing Monday. So at least I will get to fish a little bit this weekend. But yeah, what about you, Robert?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that I signed up for it a couple of weeks ago when we were talking about it. I think I did it after that show. But I don't know what the weekend's going to hold. I may get to go Sunday. Saturday we have softball all day. And so Sunday afternoon is a possibility, but the kayaks are buried deep in the garage junk because if you don't use them, these things get piled on top of them. So it may take me half the day to dig them out.
Yeah, for sure. Let's see, Friday is my last day at the bookstore. So I am I'm up to my neck and trying to make sure that I leave them in a good spot. And Saturday, going to be spending some time with the in-laws, and then Sunday we have a family photo shoot with my parents, and then Monday I have a break that I get to go fishing, and then Tuesday starts a new job. So yeah,
it'll be interesting.
Yeah, I told everybody last week that we've been talking about Faith and Fishing being on Amazon Music and Audible. I tried saying, Alexa, play the Faith and Fishing podcast, and she played, I think, every podcast that has fishing in the name of it except for Faith and Fishing. But it is what it is. But it is up there, even if Alexa can't find it. So.
Well, I'll have to try it. Maybe my Alexa's smarter than yours.
Maybe it can't. It's not a high bar. And last week I thanked the entire country of the Czech Republic for listening, and then you reminded me before we started that your son is studying abroad over there, so he is probably the one that is responsible for that. So
yeah, the last time I talked to him, I think he was a little bit homesick, and so he probably just listened and wanted to hear Dad's voice for a little bit. So he may have crammed a bunch of them. Did like a cram session and binged a whole bunch of Faith and Fishings in a row, and then got that Czech Republic up there pretty good. So yeah, my wife left today to go visit him for a week. So it's me and my other two kids here, and that'll be good for both of them because I know he's a little bit homesick, and we're missing him too. So and that'll be a good trip for her.
Hey man, I am gonna have to pause it here for a minute. I'm gonna go check on the baby. I don't know if you can hear him crying, but
you're fine. Go ahead. So while Cam steps out, I know we got a few things that we're going to talk about. And I know the rules, the kayak rules that everybody's talking about and what needs to be changed and what different organizations do and just the different rules. One thing that I have thought about and heard other people bring up, and I was just going into talking about some of the rule stuff. If you want to start with that, or if you want to back up and go a different direction, we can do that too.
We can do that. Let's play a couple ads and then we'll jump right into it.
Let's do it.
Whether you're a Ned Rig vet or a finesse fishing noob like me, Jade's Jigs is your source for high-quality finesse jigs that raise the bar by being lead-free. Using a tin bismuth alloy not only makes Jade's Jigs eco-friendly, it also makes the jig lighter so you get the same profile with less weight for the fish to feel. Check out jadesjigs.com, that's JADESJIGS.com, to see their full lineup of jigs, styles, and colors. And since you're a Faith and Fishing listener, you can save 10% on your order by using promo code FNF10 at checkout. Savior Outdoors gives me confidence that no matter what happens, what I take on the water is coming back home with me. With retrieval devices for fishing rods, bow fishing bows, action cams, and even one that can be attached to your other gear, they've got your whole arsenal covered. When one of these devices goes in a drink, it releases a float attached to your gear by 60 feet of line so you can get it back, and the pressure-sensitive filter means that you don't have to worry about raining or dips in the water while landing a fish. At SaviorOutdoors.com, that's SAVUR Outdoors.com, you can use promo code FNFP15 to save 15% and try them for yourself. All right, so looks like, I don't know if we're having technical difficulties with Robert.
Yeah, I don't know. The camera messed up. So if you want to kind of intro that, I'll go back out and rejoin and it'll be
all right.
reconnect.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll be right back.
Okie dokie. All right. So yeah, he is going to be right back, but we had talked a little bit about a couple different rule changes that are coming up next season. And I am not sure which one he started introducing before we had that little break, but there were a couple ones. There was some in the big bass boat side of things and some in the kayak side of things. And Robert and I, we are both into the kayak side of things. So he is back.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure if you had introduced the MLF changes or the.
Yeah, I was started talking about the kayak stuff, but let's do the MLF stuff first. So let's get that knocked out of the way, and then we'll do the kayak stuff. The kayak stuff probably has a little more meat to the bones. The MLF stuff. So I have been working a ton and not doing my usual listening to 5 or 6 podcasts a day. So I do know that they changed it to the 5 fish for most of those. And I think heavy hitters and one other thing is still, you just catch as many as you can. So I liked it. I liked the way that it was just because it was something different. I think it was more action packed throughout the day if you were watching it on TV. I used to go into the app and turn the brightness of my screen down and let the video play so I could hear the commentators. When the tournaments were going on, I would mow with the video playing in my pocket, and to keep from the battery running out, I would turn the brightness all the way down to black, and it would be just like, you're listening to a podcast or whatever. So I like the action of catch as many fish as you can. And I do see the other side of it where, it's just a different strategy.
Right.
If you want to go catch, if you want the most weight for 5 fish, you're going to fish differently than, the most, than trying to catch the most 2-pound fish. I think the people that are at the top with the format, the way that it was, I think those people are still going to compete and be at the top. I don't think it's going to change the names at the top. I do think you're going to get some of the guys that maybe have a hard time putting together a ton of fish. I think you may see some people that haven't been at the top move up a little bit every once in a while, especially if they get on a lake that they're familiar with, and they've got some pretty hot spots. So I think it's going to change it around a little bit, but I still think you're going to see the same names up there.
I agree with that. I think I think there are certain guys like Randy Howell and some other guys that have been fairly close to middle of the pack and a little bit above. I do think that you're going to see them jump up a little bit higher this season. Those guys that have a lot more experience with the 5-fish format this season, and it'll be a bit of a learning curve for some of the other guys who have been who maybe not. I know most of them. Everybody on that tournament trail has a lot of experience with 5-fish, but
right.
But there will be some that it takes them a little bit of.
It'll definitely be changing gears for them. I mean, they're going to, have to change gears from a one mindset to a different mindset. And so, you
guys have a skill set that is, I catch big fish. I don't catch a lot of fish, but I catch big fish. And then you have other guys that are like, I can catch 102 pounders, but catching 5-6 pounders is going to be tough. So kind of the one thing that I liked about the old way where you just catch as many as you can. I think the average guy that's going out there on the weekend just going to fun fish, that's what he's trying to do. He is trying to catch as many fish as he can, and if you hook a big one, that's great. But most people would rather go out and have a day where you catch 20 2-pound fish rather than catching 1 5-pound fish, because on the average angler, you're not going to go and catch a 5, a 4, another 4, a 3, to get these big weights. But you can run into groups of them and have a lot of fun. So I like that style, because I think it reminded me of what most people are going to and trying to do. Now, is that everybody? No. I mean, if you're tournament fishing, right, obviously all the local tournaments are 5 fish or 3 fish if it's on a weekday night. The elites and all of the Bassmaster stuff is all 5 fish. So, obviously I think they decided that it was better for their brand to go back to what people knew. My only thing is, when they started it, it was like, boom, this is something different. We're going to go and we're going to catch all these fish. And I mean, to me, when you get down to the end and there's 2 or 3 people in contention and the camera's going back and forth and somebody's catching one, and then another dude's catching one, another dude's catching one, and then the time's up, and like all 2 of them or 3 of them are standing there looking at the official, waiting to see if it's going to update. Is that the same drama as going up to the stage? And I think they're going to maybe keep their biggest fish. I don't know the details of that. I just heard stuff a couple weeks ago that they may end up keeping the biggest fish to go to a weigh-in, but I'm not sure that happened. I'm not sure if that's the case or not. I know they want to stick very close to the catch weight release. Immediate release. So
they were kicking that around, and that may not have happened. But
I'm not sure. I'm not sure 100%.
But I think I think the drama of the weigh-ins, to me, it was as much drama or more seeing those guys on the split screen at the end of that, and then somebody wins it. So I don't know. I mean, I'm still going to watch it. So.
Yeah. I mean, from an entertainment standpoint, I get what you're saying for the end result part.
Mm-hmm.
That part that part was fun. But I would rather watch somebody jig fish all day than watch somebody live scope fish all day.
Right.
100%.
Yeah.
Because you can't see what he sees. You just see somebody looking at a screen and twitching their rod tip, and that's about it. So personally for me, the live scope, mega optics or whatever they're called, that's not as fun for me to watch. But yeah, for sure. So hopefully they do. Personally, I hope they do not keep their biggest fish. I hope they keep the catch immediate release thing going. I think that's
I
really got going for them.
I don't think it's going to change the weigh in. I mean, to me, it kind of defeats the purpose of the whole catch, weigh, release. But I think they were when they were kicking around, it was kind of like, do we want to have, kind of some drama. So, two things on what you just said I was going to comment on. One of them is, okay, you have the elites, which has always been 5 fish, and then when MLF split off, it's like, boom, here's this new deal. We're going to go catch as many fish. We're going to do catch, weigh, release. We're going to put an official in each boat, and this is this new deal. So you had the split. You had half the anglers are going to stay at the elites. You had, I don't know if it was half, but whatever. Let's just say it was half and half.
It kind of felt like it was every big name ran to MLF.
Went to MLF, yeah. So let's, but then you've had people backfill in the elites that are big names now that weren't there. So it gave room to some people to move up to the elites. And so the last couple of years, I've been watching both because it's two different deals, and I enjoy watching both things. So here's the question. If they're both going to be doing the same thing now, except the elites are going to bring them to the scales and weigh them in, and MLF is going to catch, weigh, release, I don't think that works. I don't think having two different organizations that are both at the quote unquote top level doing the same thing. I want to see all those anglers combine. If we're going to do it the same way, there doesn't need to be two. So I bet I'm not the only one that feels that way. And so I wouldn't be surprised if in a couple of years from now that one of the other folds or they combine and one buys the other out. I don't know how that's going to happen, but it's kind of like the NFL. And if you're old enough to remember the USFL, two pro sports leagues do not work at the top level. I don't care what it is. But
it's Bassmaster and FLW all over again.
Yeah. So it's just, I don't think it's going to work having big names split on two different things. Like, I want to see them all compete. I want to see Swindle versus Wheeler. I want to see all the people in one deal because now they're doing the same thing. So, we'll see what happens with it.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point. So yeah, and we were talking about some of the rule changes in kayak fishing too, that are potential rule changes. I don't know that anything's set in stone yet. It may be. I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah.
But I know KBF had talked about switching things up to have designated launches next year, or ramps and launches, and I'm assuming that is in response to what happened with Drew Gregory with Bass this season. So, your thoughts on that, sir?
Yes. So I have one big thought that we can kind of include everything into, and I'll go back to this, but I want to put it out there now. You're going to have a governing body over all of kayak fishing. And it may not be like, I don't mean a governing body like you got to tell Hobie BOS what to do. You've got to tell Bass what to do. And you've got to, you got to tell Hoover what to do. But there needs to be a standard set of rules, because the people that are fishing these larger national trails, most of them are fishing more than one, if not all three at some point during the year when they come close. And for kayak anglers, there is a few that are driving from Michigan to Florida, or, they're driving from Pennsylvania to Texas. There's a handful of those, but the majority of kayak fishermen, kayak anglers are going to fish. If those national trails come close within a couple hours, 3-4 hours, that's what they're going to fish. So if KBF comes to Santee Cooper, I might look at fishing that. If Hobie BOS comes within a couple hours, I'm probably going to make the drive and fish it. But it's too confusing. I mean, the rules are close enough to the same. It's the same thing, but there are just little tweaks where you can slip up, and if you're not paying attention, you can unintentionally have fish DQ'd because your hand's in the wrong place on photos. Who knows what's going to go on with the portaging, not portaging, legal ramps, not legal ramps. So needs to be one set of rules. I guess governing body is not really the right word, but one set of rules that everybody, all three of those organizations can put their heads together. I'm pretty certain that AJ and Steve Owens are going to do that. Now, whether KBF joins in on that, my guess is probably not. And when they don't, that may see them decline further. If you have two people on the same boat and they do not jump on board with that, then I think people will slowly walk back from KBF. Hopefully he is smart enough to say, you know what, this is a good thing. Let's get everybody on the same page, and then all three can keep growing, because they're three different trails and they all three offer something different. All right, so now that that's out of the way, the ramp, designated ramps.
Designated ramps. Okay, so here's my viewpoint on designated ramps. It's kayak fishing. And if you can get to a public access and you can get your kayak in the water and it's public land, I think you should be able to launch from there. Now, having said that, I do think there needs to be a stipulation on how far from the main lake that you can go. And I don't know if you saw Mitch's post for the Central Carolina. I did, yeah.
Yeah, so, excuse me, he had it marked on a map, and at this bridge, you can't go past that. At this bridge, you can't go more up the creeks, and he had all of those marked on there. And I know, on KBN, they talked about, having a master set of maps that everybody can use. And will it take some legwork up front? Yes. Somebody's going to have to sit down and come up with, what is too far up the river. But it's just like the KBF National Championship. I didn't go fish it, but that's where I grew up fishing. So if I had to fish that, my mom's house is probably 45, 50 minutes, maybe an hour from Paris, where the check-ins were. I could have walked out of my neighborhood and went in a creek and threw the kayak in, and that creek is part of the watershed to Lake Barkley. And I guarantee you that it's been fished in some of those tournaments before. So I do think that there needs to be a boundary drawn on how far back you can go in some of these creeks. Now, is that going to handicap some people? Yeah, potentially, but you can still go quite a ways, but you need to be fishing the same body of water. If you want to, I don't know what the right number is, maybe it's 5 miles. I don't know. Maybe it's 10 miles. But I do think there needs to be a designated, just to keep people from getting in, where beavers dammed up and there's holding fish where it's really a pond is what it is. And that's not the same. To me, that's not the same water when it's dammed up and it's holding fish. So the designated ramps, I say if you get the kayak in, put it in. I like that a lot better because, if you do have designated ramps, and probably not all of them are going to be on there, especially if, some of these trails come closer. If some of the national trails come to somebody's home lake, you're probably going to know a couple put in spots that they're not going to know about. And so I like to be able to fish those spots when those trails come closer. So I'm against that. I think it's kayak fishing. It's kayak fishing for a reason, and it's not boat ramp fishing. Now, having said that, I'm not sliding my kayak down the hill. I'm not putting mine because it's too heavy. I got too much stuff on there. I'm using a ramp anyway, but I also want to be able to use some parking lots and use my boondocks and roll that into the water as well, where there is no, where there is no actual ramp, but you do have swimming areas, fishing piers. You do have a lot of public access that there is no ramp.
Right.
So, I like to be able to fish those. What are your thoughts on that, on the ramp?
So I hate launching my kayak from a boat ramp. I hate it. I don't have a huge kayak. It's a little 12-footer. It's not a John boat that is called a kayak because kayak fishing is popular right now. So I hate using a boat ramp. So having designated launches where that they are most likely going to be boat ramps, because most of these guys are in trailers because they have such massive kayaks and all this stuff on them and everything. I personally would rather say, like you said, if you can get your kayak into the water from a public access on that body of water, you should be able to do it. Now, whenever it comes to, boundaries, I'm kind of on the fence on that. Like, if I can get there, let me get there. If I'm willing to paddle that far, let me. Personally, I feel that portaging is something that should be allowed. Even if it is a beaver dam, that's what kayak fishing is all about to me. Like, getting out of my boat, dragging it. My fear with having designated launches, boundaries that keep everybody on the main lake, is that what it ends up happening is, if you are not, like, especially in like the months of like July and August, where it's here in North Carolina, it's 100 degrees. If you're not hitting deep water, you're not getting offshore, you're not gonna stand a chance in this tournament. Yeah. And to me, that kind of defeats what kayak fishing is all about. I'm not saying that if you were out there fishing that, if that's your bread and butter, I'm not saying you're doing anything wrong. But I am saying that whenever you kind of narrow it down to, if you want to stand a chance in this tournament, you got to fish offshore in the deep water. You are at a significant disadvantage if you are not in a $3,000 to $5,000 kayak with $10,000 worth of electronics and motors and everything. So now this sport, that one of the beauties of this sport is the cheap entry. Now you're at the point where if you're not in a $15,000 boat, you're not gonna have a chance at participating in this tournament. And that is my fear of this where these rule changes can end up leading.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, that's something really that I haven't thought about as far as, not being able to go up further, on the creeks or whatever. But I like the public access. I like being able to, if you have a lighter kayak, to put it in, and it does keep the cost entry down. And if you're fishing some moving water in the summertime, you do better than you are in most of the lakes, unless you're offshore. So another thing I guess it would do too is it would crowd more people on those offshore spots as well, if you don't have as many people up the creek arms. So I don't know what the answer is, but it'll be interesting to see what is coming up with. In the portaging, I understand your point, and I think that is part of kayak fishing, but I also think it leads to too many gray areas.
And
what if there's a part of the creek that I'm going up there, but there's a pond that's 50 yards off the thing? I mean, who's to keep somebody from going over there?
Yeah.
So
I don't know.
Yeah, but most of it is on the anglers as well, and that's a big, huge part of it, to make sure that you're doing things the right way. And just like Drew said on the protest, if you see something that you don't think is right, it is on us to bring it to the tournament director's attention. Not because it's like an I gotcha, or I'm going to get that guy because he caught more fish. It's because we want the sport to be an honest, trustworthy sport. So when people are looking to get into it, that, they know that there are some checks and balances, which is the anglers keeping an eye out. So I think it's good that stuff got questioned. As far as, Drew's win, Bassmaster or Bass Open, whatever it is, the kayak bass. I think it's good that it was protested. Are people going to push the boundaries of what the rules are? Yeah. You know why? Because if he can get there, and it's probably a place that I couldn't get to, that's why he caught the biggest fish. I mean, that's just it, point blank. It's you can liken it to going to these bigger lakes, Champlain or something like that. If you have a big kayak and you are able to set offshore, and you're able to spot lock, and you're able to use live scope, that's an advantage. So you got somebody with a $10,000 to $15,000 boat with a motor, spot lock, and Panoptics setting offshore catching smallmouth. Then the other guy has a $1,000 kayak that's light. I do think he should be able to put in a public access and get to these smaller creeks so he can compete, like you said. So, I think it's good that got protested. I think the outcome was the right outcome. I'm glad Drew had some video of going around the obstacles. And we talked a little bit before we came on the show. I mean, one of the things was, that riffle was too shallow. You can't get your boat over it without getting out. Well, I mean, I'm pretty lazy, so I don't want to get out. So I'll scoot my kayak, even if it's bottomed out. You can still scoot it and not ever get out of the kayak. So, I'm glad that he had some video evidence of how he got to where he got. And, he's been kicking butt all year. So I know he's relieved at that. And we'll see what happens with those. I think those were the two biggest things, was the ramps and how far up the creeks. And I don't know if there's anything else they're talking about as much as those two things.
Yeah, those are the main things. And I know that you probably have some listeners that have been screaming at the podcast, listening to me voice my opinions. You have to understand, I don't consider myself a tournament angler. I fish tournaments, but like any chance I get to fun fish, like I'm going in and fishing a tournament, like most of the time I'm fun fishing in the tournament. Yeah. So right. I'm more of a recreational guy than a tournament guy. So whenever I'm saying this selfishly, like this is what I want, because this is how I will have the most fun, and I will enjoy this more. So there's someone who's got $15,000 worth of kayak and gear and everything. I have nothing against you and what you're doing. I think it's awesome. I think it's great to see, the capabilities of kayaks grow and grow and grow. But I will always be a paddle first fisherman. So.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, that's another good point. I have fished some of the national stuff, but I'm not really going to fish those thinking that I'm going to win. I'm going to fish those national tournaments to have fun as well, and to learn kind of how those things lay out and to get better. So the viewpoints that I have are not going to be the same viewpoints as the top 20 gals that are going to all these national tournaments. They're going to have a different viewpoint on these rules than 99% of the other people that fish the local trails. And then they do a tournament here. They do a national tournament here or there, and 2 or 3 national tournaments a year. But they're going to have a totally different mindset when some of those guys are going, and that's all they're doing is they're traveling around and they're fishing these national tournaments. And I think that's where you get, maybe there needs to be one premier national trail, so that maybe those rules are different. Maybe those rules are different for one trail that has 6 to 7 events. I don't know how that shakes out. I know we're probably not quite big enough for that. We don't have enough people that can go and do those and make enough money to support that. So having said that, that is one other thing that I have heard brought up, is the off limits period before these bigger tournaments. So most of them don't really have an off limits beforehand. You can go fish it as much as you want to. Right. So a lot of people that are going and fishing the national tournaments are going from one tournament. They may go home for a couple of days, and they're going to the next spot. Sometimes most of them are getting there on a Monday, and they're pre-fishing the whole week. Excuse me. I don't think there's anything wrong with getting there on Monday and fishing the whole week and then hitting the tournament.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
But I go ahead.
I think there does need to be a limit to it. Like, I don't think that, if you have a month that in between tournaments, you don't need to be sitting there and fishing every day for a month on this lake. That's excessive. And that is, if it's your home lake, then, you're at that point already anyway. But I do think, I get that there needs to be a limit, but I do, like, I don't have any problem with it being like a week or or something like that.
Yeah, I think a week is fine. And I think also what that does, if you think about the economics of pro bass fishing, whether it's boat or it's kayak, the economics of it is you have to put all these pieces together in order to make enough money to support yourself as a professional fisherman. And when I say all the pieces, you are going to have to win and cut some checks to have some money coming in, but you're also going to have to do social media. You're going to have to do some YouTube, some Instagram. You're going to have some sponsors that are putting up some money because you're showcasing their products. Without pre-fishing limits, then it cuts into your time to tackle those other things that you need to tackle in order to make enough money to be able to only bass fish. So you don't have to have another side gig, if that makes sense. So if I'm fish one tournament, I can't compete with a guy who's going to the next tournament that's a month from now. He's going and he's camping and he's fishing the whole month before the tournament. Now, I know there's not that many of those guys that do that, but there are some that go excessive. And you can't tell me that if I can get on the lake 5 or 6 days a week for a month, that I don't have a better shot of winning that tournament. So in order to keep people from having to go there earlier to compete, set that limit at a week so you can do other things for those 3 weeks in between. Now you have another tournament. Okay, time to go to work. You go that Monday, you pre-fish that week. If you want to throw that Friday out and only pre-fish Monday through Thursday, have Friday as an off day and hit the tournament Saturday, Sunday. I think that's a possibility, but I also think that hurts your local guys too, because most local guys, if a tournament trail comes close, normally I'm like, okay, I'm taking off that Friday because I'm pre-fishing Friday and I'm fishing the tournament Saturday and Sunday, because most local guys that are supporting these national trails can't take off the whole week most of the time. And that's the other side of the economics. You need the local participation in order to sell out these tournaments at 200 people. Right. You know, you've got 50 to 60, maybe 70 that are traveling and they're going to most of the Hobies. But then that leaves 130 local guys. And I think that puts that 130 local guys at a disadvantage if they can't pre-fish that Friday. So I don't know what the right call is there, but I definitely think it needs to be a set thing. And I think that's where the set rules for all three trails would come into play, with input from everybody to come up with whatever you want to call it, universal kayak rules. I don't know. But in that way, everybody could follow the same deal.
And a big takeaway that I have from this conversation is, you know, God bless tournament directors.
Yeah, I don't want any part of it. I barely can even find the time to get and go pre-fishing and actually sign up and do the tournaments, much less do the paperwork side of it and putting all that stuff together and making decisions and judging all the fish. You know, a lot of people don't realize a lot of these tournament directors are also judging. So they're taking their whole Saturday, and a lot of these bigger local trails, you know, they're taking their Saturdays and judging fish, or they're trading out with other trails. Like, hey, if you have a tournament, I'll be a judge for you. And then, hey, when I have my tournament, will you judge for me, so they can fish those as well. So,
and you know, these guys they're kind of stuck between people on both ends of the spectrum that are screaming the loudest about all of these things. And they're taken into consideration not only what makes this as fair as possible to all the anglers, but also what keeps our anglers as safe as possible. You know, if they open the lakes or the creeks and rivers up and say you can go 10 miles, what if that person who goes 10 miles ends up getting hurt? Like, how are we getting to that person to help them, so there's that aspect of it too. And man, there's so much that goes into being a tournament director that does not, like, praises do not get sung enough for what they do and what all they consider and all the work that they do to make this make these tournaments and everything as good as they are.
Yeah, I agree totally. It's probably a thankless job most of the time. So everybody remember that when you're doing these trails, to pat your TDs on the back, tell them thank you, support the sponsors that they go out and work hard to get. That's another thing that people don't understand is that, if you're fishing a trail but you're not supporting the sponsors, you're really doing an injustice to your trail.
Yeah, man. Well, let's play a couple ads and then let's have a little bit of a faith conversation while we still got a little bit of time.
Sounds good.
A huge selection and crazy fast shipping is already enough to turn heads as an online tackle shop, but Omnia Fishing sets themselves apart with their ambassador program. With Omnia, you can send in fishing reports for your local lakes that recommend baits, structure, tactics, and gear. And when another angler takes your advice and purchases something from your report, you get credit for it to spend at Omnia. The best part means that with Omnia Fishing, you can shop by lake and purchase baits and gear that are proven to work where you're fishing. To get started, go to omniafishing.com and use promo code FNF15 to save 15% on your first order.
Atollas, based out of Charleston, South Carolina, is an eyewear accessory and gear company focused on enhancing your time on the water. Their floating sunglass retainers are the most technically advanced around. Over 5 years of engineering, testing, and exhaustive feedback from paddlers, anglers, and watermen have resulted in a patented design in a class of its own. They're incredibly light and comfortable, built for durability, sport a sleek, minimal design, float virtually all brands and models of sunglasses, and they're backed for life. So if you break them, Atollas will replace them. No questions asked. Whether you're fishing, kayaking, or boating, Atollas will save your shades from the dream. Head on over to atollas.co to check out their gear and use promo code faithnfish15. That's faith, the letter N, fish, the number 1, 5 at checkout to save 15% on your order.
All right, man. So we've been kind of pushing the positivity thing, and I had another kind of topic that I kind of mentioned that we might go over, and as we've been talking, I've kind of thought, this is a lot of negativity. This isn't what we're trying to brand ourselves as. So
yeah, I'm good with that.
I'm calling an audible.
That's fine.
I'm going to ask with no preparation whatsoever, where have you seen God this week, man?
That's a great question. I'm going to say, just realizing, a couple of different ways. Number one, realizing how much you love the people around you. It's your family members and things like that, with my wife going over to Prague to visit my son who's over there. And then the whole thing with you talking about, we have listeners in the Czech Republic now, and it was him just probably wanting to hear my voice, which is pretty cool. He does do a podcast as well. And it's crazy. Like, I'll listen to his sometimes too. It's him and like 2 or 3 of his buddies, and they talk about, some crazy stuff. I think maybe a month or 2 ago, they stack ranked Disney princesses. And I will have to say it was one of the more entertaining podcasts that I have listened to.
What's their podcast?
Yeah, so you're gonna put me on the spot. It'll come to me in a second. But it's on my Spotify. I just go to it and click it. I don't even know the name of it. But I'll have to give them a shout out the next time.
Yeah, for sure. And let me know. I want to, if nothing else, I want to see how they rank the Disney princesses, man.
Yeah, it's pretty entertaining. So, just things like that, being reminded of the people that are around you and the support system that our family provides us and that we provide to them. And then the second place is, I mentioned it's been a busy couple of weeks. This is my third week at a different job. I did restaurants for 20 years, and then the past 12 years I've ran a lawn care landscaping company of my own. I still do some of that now, but I started working for a different company, and I started without having any prior knowledge. And so it's been interesting, but I think it's going to be a great fit for me. And all of that came about because things happen, and I wasn't really looking for that job, and things happened, and it just kind of fell into place. And it's just everything happens for a reason. And when things don't go your way, or you're down because something's not going right, that's just God testing you, or that's God saving you from something else. If you get behind a slow driver, it's the first thing to get aggravated, like, go on, because I got somewhere to be, but if you went on, you might have got hit by that drunk driver that ran off the road and thankfully just ran into a cornfield and didn't run over you and your family because you were stuck behind that slower car. So that's kind of the couple of places. What about yourself?
Well, so let me start by saying I am not a holiday person. I do not like, with the exception of Thanksgiving, I really am not a big fan of holidays. And Halloween sits at the bottom of that list. I cannot stand it. But the neighborhood that we live in gets a lot of trick-or-treaters. A lot of trick-or-treaters. And this year it wasn't as many as it has been in the past, just because the weather wasn't great. But man, in years past, especially before COVID, it was like the trick-or-treating scene from E.T., like kids everywhere. I grew up in farmland where you couldn't do that because everybody owned 200 acres. Like,
right.
If you wanted to get to your neighbor's house comfortably, you got in a car. Like, we would go trick-or-treating in the car, go to a couple of church members' houses, and we were their only trick-or-treaters and all that good stuff. But standing out on a front stoop and greeting these kids as they come up, and they're having a blast. They're just seeing that joy in these kids' faces, man. It's hard not to see God in the face of a kid that's just having an absolute blast.
Yeah.
So that's definitely where I saw God this week. At our next door neighbor goes all out. Like, they had the fog machine going and everything and all that good stuff. So it was.
Yeah, that's us.
As, we've got a little inflatable and some lights, and that's about it.
Yeah.
That's a lot more than I ever want to see, but
Yeah, it is. It sounds like they're softening you up to Halloween. Maybe it's going to climb the charts and not be on the bottom of the list. But I think before you have kids, you see a lot of things in a different light, and then when you have kids, you realize you just have a different outlook on everything. And
that is very true.
Yeah.
There are a lot of things that I used to enjoy different types of of movies and stuff, and now I'm like, I can't enjoy that anymore or whatever. So, or stuff that is like, I never really paid any attention to this kind of stuff before, and now it's like, oh, this is awesome, like, because I see it through Henry's eyes,
Yeah.
So, yeah, for sure. It's there was something I was going to comment on that you said earlier. Oh, it was the road rage thing. It's just a funny story. So y'all know I used to be a youth pastor, and one of my favorite stories to tell from that is, it was the first concert I took the kids to after I started. It was here in Raleigh. We were in Deep Run, which is about 2 hours away, hour and 45 minutes or so. And I was driving a group of kids. We kind of caravanned over there, and I'm driving a group of kids, and we were driving by, and somebody there's one of these intersections here in Raleigh that's just poorly designed, and I hate it so much. And somebody cut me off on it, and I laid into them, and I was good in terms of that I wasn't using ugly language or anything, but I was calling them names, and I was telling them to slow down and go on, get your ticket, and all this stuff. I was yelling and not being very kind. From the back seat, I hear, Cam. I said, what? She said, they can't hear you.
Yep, that's right.
And it was like that instant, slap in the face moment, oh, yeah, I'm being watched, and I am not doing a very good job right now of setting a good example and everything. But just that little voice back there that I always love telling that story. She was just this real tinny voice back there, the voice of reason. Yeah, they can't hear you. Yeah, man. Well, let's play a couple more ads, and then we'll close stuff out, man.
Sounds good.
With 30 years of experience of handcrafting lures under his belt, Mr. B of Mr. B Lure Company is making high-quality spinnerbaits, buzzbaits, jigs, underspins, swim blades, and more right here in the U.S. All of his skirts are hand-tied, and all of his baits feature a baked-on powder paint, all metal components, and only Owner and Gamakatsu hooks. All of his baits come in a variety of colors, and if you purchase a bait in the Battle Shad color, 30% of the proceeds go to the Wounded Warrior Project. To see the quality for yourself, go to MrBLureCompany.com, that's MRBLureCompany.com, to place your order and use promo code FAITH, fish, POD 1X10 at checkout to save 10% on your first order. Get Outdoors Pedal and Paddle in Greensboro, North Carolina offers a wide range of products and services designed to help protect the environment and enhance the time people spend enjoying the outdoors. With an expansive year-round inventory of kayaks, SUPs, bikes, kayak fishing accessories, paddling clothing, biking accessories, and more, Get Outdoors has established itself as one of the top paddle sports and biking shops in the Southeast. They also offer a wide range of kayak safety and technique courses to get you comfortable in your new boat. They'll even get it rigged up for you. Stop by the shop in Greensboro, North Carolina, or check them out at shopgetoutdoors.com.
Well, man, this has been an episode of interruptions, but
That's fun.
I know y'all heard me opening and closing the door earlier. The dog came and scratched at the door to get in, so I let her in, and she paces and then sits down at the door and whines to go out. So I open the door, and she looks out and looks at me, and then just sits there. So I close the door. She paces and then winds at the door again.
Yeah.
It's the joys of having dogs. They are insane, and this one is more like a cat. I'll have to show you a picture sometime. Like she'll sit on the back of the couch looking outside, like. But yeah,
it makes it interesting to have dogs around for sure.
Yeah, and you never know what's going to happen. We over the weekend, Caitlin and I were outside working on just yard work. Henry was inside napping. We had the baby monitor with us and everything, and Rosie goes nuts. We're hearing her like going nuts, and I'm too far away from what's going on to know anything about what's going on. I just see Caitlin run inside, and she's obviously very upset. Try to go in and figure out what's going on. The nursery door hadn't closed all the way, and Rosie had pushed herself through, and then sat at the bottom of the crib and barked at Henry until he woke up screaming like, "What in the world? Why would you do that?"
Yeah, it is crazy.
But yeah, man, getting back to the episode, didn't mean to go down a rabbit hole right there at the end, but yeah, man, final thoughts on rule changes and all that good stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I think what I started out with on rule changes, I'll end with, and have one set of universal kayak rules, boundary rules, photograph rules, launch rules. Have one set of rules, so it's not so hard for people going back and forth. I don't know the right call on launches or roadside, or everything's got to be at ramps. I don't know what the right thing to do is. Or on the flip side, is it better to have 3 trails that are somewhat different? I don't know the answer to that either. I do think there's probably some value in that, even though it's more complicated. Maybe some people like one set of rules better than the other. For me, I wish it was all the same. That doesn't mean that everybody thinks that way. But the main thing is, I guess, that it's being talked about and things are moving forward. I'm sure that, there'll be mistakes moving forward, and you kind of back up a little bit, fix those, and move forward again. So I'm glad to see the sport growing. I'm glad to see there's communication and people are talking about, rule changes. I think the KBN podcast, which when this comes out will have been 2 weeks ago, I think that podcast was a great example of people really in the comment section putting down great comments and wanting to know about certain rules and wanting, hey, can we change this? Hey, what about this? And, I think it's great that the kayak community, everybody are having these discussions and how do we make it better? So that's a good deal. And then the MLF rules,
we'll see.
One or the other is going to buy out the other one in a couple of years. You mark my word. You heard it here first. And probably not first, because probably somebody else thinks the same way. But I just don't think with the same format there's any reason to have elite level anglers. And I'm saying elite, counting the elites and counting the MLF anglers, both as top-notch anglers. There's no reason to have them in 2 separate places. Maybe
as much as I love everything that MLF stands for, Bassmaster's not going anywhere. They've already proved that.
Yeah.
They survived all of their star power leaving.
Yep.
And I mean, they're not anywhere.
Yeah. Yeah. So, does one buy out the other and make it a somewhat triple A? I'm just saying, I'd rather see the top 40 or 50 out of both of those compete, and then see what's left on a different deal. But that's me. So I'm not sure how the public will react, and it's going to be all about the media dollars. How is that going to? I mean, obviously, to me, what they were doing was not working, or they wouldn't have changed it. So They got to be looking for more viewership, and going to that, they're thinking that's going to get them more viewership. I'm not sure they're right about it, but I guess we'll find out.
That may be part of it, and part of it may also be, trying to keep their main guys from leaving and going back to Bassmaster, because we've already seen that with quite a few of them. So
yeah.
But yeah, man. One thing I wanted to reiterate is give your tournament director, no matter what trail you're fishing, give your tournament director some love. They are they rack their brains on all kinds of stuff that, and they're out there making sure that we can have a good time and we can stay safe and all that good stuff. And props to all the tournament directors out there who are doing a fantastic job.
Yes, I'll second that, and also say not only give them props, but show them some respect, and whatever rules that are there for the tournament, follow them to the best of your ability. Make sure we're speaking to other anglers and the tournament directors with respect, and just keep moving this thing forward.
Absolutely. Keep it positive.
Sounds good.
Yeah, man. Well, y'all, that's going to do it for this episode. Y'all take care, and God bless.
Thank you for listening to the Faith and Fishing podcast. Faith and Fishing is produced and hosted by me, Cam Steele, and is sponsored by Jade's Jigs, Get Outdoors Pedal and Paddle, Save Your Outdoors, Atollas, and Mr. B Lure Company. Be sure to give us a rating and a review, and to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. That's going to do it for this episode. Y'all take care, and God bless.